Welcome everyone to another performance clinic, a CTO guide for successful Dynatrace hackathons. It's part of my performance clinic series, but as you will hear and see today, it's going to be a little different, a little special. I also have a special guest with me today. Special meaning that I think you are my first CTO that I have on my phone. Yes.
Really? Okay. I'm honored.
So I'm honored. So it doesn't happen every day, as you know. So Paul, can you do me a favor and quickly introduce yourself, your background, and also obviously you're a CTO, but still explain what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the CTO at End. So we are a men's fashion retailer, mostly kind of luxury, high-end fashion. We have stores in Newcastle, Glasgow, and London, but most of our business is online. We have a very, very busy e-commerce website. We've got 2 very popular mobile apps, and we have a platform that we built which deals with kind of high-end limited edition sneaker releases. So very much kind of a global business, very much an e-commerce business, but we do have that kind of bricks and mortar store. So I lead the tech team here, which is around 50 people. So we're based in London. And yeah, I've been CTO here for 6 years, but I've been in e-commerce for 20 years. So yeah, well, start to get worried when you can say you've been doing something for 20 years.
Yeah, well, either you're lazy to change or you're really excited on what you're doing, right? I mean, that's you can always see it from different perspectives.
It's more just that you're not young anymore.
That's true too. So can you? So what did you do in your? Now you're CTO. What were you before? Like which roles?
I actually have my own agency. So I ran a web agency that specialized in e-commerce websites. So it probably did maybe 30 to 40 e-commerce websites over the years, range of different companies. And then I sold that business to come and work full-time at End, which was a business that was growing very, very fast. And it just seemed like a really exciting company to be a part of. And it's continued to grow very, very fast, which is fantastic.
Very cool. So I want to remind everyone that is listening in, if you're live, well, that's great because you have the chance to ask questions. So Paul, this is going to be a very casual conversation. We have a couple of slides prepared because the topic today is really, we want to talk about how to run hackathons, your experiences with running hackathons, especially one that you did not too long ago with a focus on Dynatrace. So we'll show things, we'll discuss things, but I think my main goal is so that the audience that may want to start in establishing hackathons internally so that they can get their questions answers on, let's say, how to plan it, how to sell it internally, how to run it, what's the success criteria. These are some of the questions I will have for you. So folks that are online and listening in, you are on mute, but you can ask questions through the question feature of GoToWebinar. So please type them in and then I will throw them over to Paul as they come in. Now, Paul, as I just mentioned, you reached out, or I think it was Amy, or I'm not sure who reached out eventually to me and said, hey, we just did a hackathon focusing on Dynatrace, and there were some really cool results. And I want to actually start with the first thing that I thought was really cool and interesting, and hopefully the animations come through here. This was one of the projects that actually came out of the recent hackathon. And just looking at it, right, I don't see anything of Dynatrace, but obviously the stuff we see here is powered by Dynatrace data. Now, can you talk a little bit about this particular project that you did in your recent hackathon?
Yeah, so this was our front-end team. So our front-end team are responsible for our React front-end for our two websites. And so this project was, I mean, most of the teams did a few different things. So they did some kind of like kind of more basic stuff, improving the monitoring, improving the kind of visibility of their apps. But then they all did kind of some cool kind of thing that to show off and do something a little bit more creative. And this was something that they did to basically experiment as a kind of, what data can we get out of Dynatrace and what can we potentially do with it and how can we use it in other ways? So we track conversion events in Dynatrace. We also track things like the basket value as a session property. So in this, that kind of pulling that data out of Dynatrace using the API and they've created this nice visualization here, which is kind of real time, and it shows little dots. So every time we get a sale, a little dot goes off, and it kind of logs it as to where it's coming from. So it's pretty cool. Nice dashboard that you could have up on a screen in your office. I've seen a few companies who've done things like this, and it's always quite cool. It's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, it's so pretty cool and impressive. So that means your teams built an app that is basically pulling the Dynatrace API. I would assume something like USQL API, and then so our user session query language is pulling out the data and then posting it on this dashboard. It's really cool. Now I see, Paul, that you are really silent, and I'm not sure if it's you or me, but it seems there is some lag, and I wonder if it's you or me. I hope it's not me. Just folks that are online, if you can let me know if you can still hear me, or if I am lost in cyberspace, or if Paul has kind of been lost in cyberspace. So folks that are online, can you just quickly let me know? Paul is frozen. Yeah, I can see this too. Hopefully he will be back shortly. So, but you know, while as we're waiting, yeah, he just dropped, but I'm sure he will be back any second. I thought it was pretty cool to see a project like this coming out of a hackathon. And for those folks of you that are listening in that have no idea yet about Dynatrace, so they are using Dynatrace to monitor real user activity. So as he said, people that navigate through their e-commerce site, that are putting stuff in their basket, that are clicking around, checking out. And with Dynatrace, we have the capability to track these users, but not only the individual users and their click streams, but also business value, like a conversion rate, like a basket value. And we do have some ways of visualizing this data in Dynatrace, but I thought this was a pretty cool way of showing how you can automate the data, or how you can come up with new use cases and extracting data from Dynatrace and then pushing it maybe to other tools or platforms to visualize it in a different way. I think you can see it on the bottom. There's a little ticker running through some sorts of animations here, live data streams, data points popping up. So this is all possible, and I think they did all of this as part of a hackathon. Now I'm still waiting for Rob to come in, for Paul to come back in, but I already see the first questions that are coming in. And I want to take the chance while we're waiting for Paul to rejoin us. It seems he lost internet connectivity. Are there concerns about doing things like this around permissions in the API? Was there any concern around letting the Dynatrace API keys into the wild? Were you able to do anything to help guard against rogue devs DOSing your cluster? Yeah, I guess this is a question that will push over to Paul once he's back. Again, for those people that just joined late, we lost Paul somewhere in cyberspace. I hope he's joining us any second here. But Jimmy, I will pass this question over. But one thing I want to highlight here, you're bringing up a very good point with API tokens. So in Dynatrace, in order to extract data through the API, you create tokens, as I would assume any other data platform does the same thing. And he's back.
I'm back. Hey, sorry about that. This has happened so many times now, and
that's it again. I think he's gone again. Well, we had him back for a split second. But he said this happens again and again. So now I wonder, why doesn't he fix it? He's the CTO. He should address this problem at the core, right, and find the technical root cause and fix this. We'll see. We'll see what happens when he's back. Yeah, did the call just end? Question mark, LOL. Yeah, that's all right. That's a good point. I will throw it over to him once he's back. But to Paul, are you back? At least I see you. You just need to say something. Right. I think you need to connect the audio. Here we go.
hello, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We were just making some jokes here.
Okay. Make some jokes about BT. Yeah.
Somebody,
Okay.
somebody was just saying, did the call just end? LOL. Yeah. Yeah, it
Fingers
could be.
crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, if this happens again, right? One suggestion from here there is maybe we should cut the video stream, even though I think the video stream makes it more lively and more engaging. Hey, Paul, one question came in from Jimmy. I started answering the question, but I think it's better for you, especially on this use case here, but the other API-driven use cases as well. Were there any concerns about doing things like this around permissions in the API? Was there any concern around letting Dynatrace API keys into the wild? Were you able to do anything to help guard against rogue devs DOSing your cluster?
So, I mean, this was obviously just a POC, a proof of concept that they produced. So I don't really know what the team considered with regards to that specifically, but it's not something that we've actively kind of moved into production yet. We're not actually using this in the real world, so haven't really given a lot of thought to that. But yeah, it's a good question. It's something that definitely needs some thought. I don't know what your answer would have been.
Yeah, I think I have twofold answers. First of all, I think this is also the reason for a hackathon. You create new innovation in a safe environment, and then you need to figure out how to make it in the end production ready. But there's so many new ideas that come out of it. The technical answer to this is with Dynatrace, we have tokens, and obviously you can grant tokens privileges. And you can obviously at any time revoke tokens. What we do know, however, and I think this is where Jimmy comes from, his question comes from. I had a performance clinic just a couple of weeks ago with Florian Eigner, one of our product managers who's responsible for the APIs. And there's going to be more permission management coming, especially like the type of data that you allowed. Because right now you can say, is the token allowed to read data, to change configuration, but we're not right now limiting it to what type of data. And this is also stuff that is coming.
So I mean, I think this is the first time that we've actually kind of experimented with pulling data from the Dynatrace API. It's not something we've really done in a kind of production scenario before. So we haven't really had to deal with those challenges yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but for DOSing, Jimmy also asked, DOSing, we have rate limits. So obviously you can you cannot make endless calls with a particular token. You're rate limited at some point. So this should at least not happen. But awesome dashboard, awesome stuff that came out of a hackathon. And I think that's a great segue now into, what is a hackathon? And I assume the term hackathon is known by many, especially those that have signed up. But in case you didn't know, I just found the idea on Wikipedia, or the definition on Wikipedia. And whether you call it hackathon, hack day, hackfest, or codefest, I think you just really internally we discussed this. You just call it a hackathon.
Yeah, we just call it hackathon. Not very creative, but it's something that we've been doing for I think 3 years now. So it's something that I wanted to do from the start of this team 6 years ago, but we didn't really have the space to do it in our previous office. So when we moved 3 years ago, we started to do them, and we do it once a year. But yeah, we just call it a hackathon. We do get awesome T-shirts made up, which our design team makes. So everyone who takes part gets a T-shirt. So that's pretty cool. But no, we don't call it anything cool.
Okay, that's fine. I think hackathon on itself is cool enough. So let's go to some of the questions that I have for you, and I really want to make sure we get those addressed. These are questions that I had in preparing for this call, but also questions that I have received in preparation. So because we announced this a couple of weeks ago, and so people came in, and I think the big question was around, in the beginning, how do you establish a hackathon program within your organization? And obviously you can read for yourself, but kind of leading up or sub questions to this. How do you sell this as being not a waste of time? Because maybe some say, well, a hackathon, this is just a waste of time. You're doing something, and then these projects may never make it to anywhere. How do you get leadership on board, right? And how does it impact your ongoing R&D projects because you're taking people out of rotation?
Yeah. So yeah, good questions. So I think for us, it's kind of just become a part of our culture. So I don't really get challenged too much on why we're doing this. But also I think that's part of because of the way that we do it, which I'll get to in a minute. But I think for me, there's kind of two kind of angles to go at this from. One is kind of the output, and what is the output of this hackathon going to be? What what kind of things are going to get built, what kind of projects are going to get worked on, and will those projects actually materialize into something that has business value? So that's kind of one kind of angle to go at it from, and that's kind of one question that I guess you need to answer. The other sort of side of it, which is the side that I kind of tend to go at it from, is more around team morale, team development, team happiness. It's always a really cool thing for the team to be involved in and to work on. And I think especially in, we're quite a large organization. We've got 650 people, of which 50 people are tech people. And in big organizations where you have a technology team, typically the kind of stuff they'll be doing day to day is not really their own ideas. It's they're being given work to do, and maybe they might be able to have a little bit of input into kind of how they approach that. But for the most part, it's not going to be their own ideas. So it's really nice just to have that 1 week of a year where they can kind of work on their own ideas as long as it's related to the business. They can work with some technologies maybe that excite them and interest them that they haven't used before. We also kind of structure the teams in a way that they'll get a chance to work with people that maybe they don't always usually work with. And that's a really valuable experience for kind of that team happiness piece. So I think those are the two kind of angles you can approach it from. And I think my advice would be, depending on what's more important to you, would depend on how you do it. So if you're more concerned with the output, narrow the scope of the hackathon. So it's quite a narrow scope with a kind of quite clear set of guidelines. And yes, there'll be some creativity involved in what they do. For example, the Dynatrace Hackathon we did was a very narrow scope. Usually when we do quite a wide scope, so the team can kind of do whatever they want. And that's kind of better for team morale. So that's kind of the angle that I tend to go from, is more about team morale. But for the Dynatrace one, it was a bit different. We did do quite a narrow scope, and we had a clear idea of what we wanted to get out of it. So that's kind of like how I consider it not to be a waste of time. That's how I would get leadership on board. In terms of the impact, so what we do is probably going to be different for different businesses, but we're a retailer. So our busiest time of year is like Black Friday to January. So we're typically in code freeze during that period. We're not doing any production deployments or like critical fixes only. So what we tend to do is do our hackathon right in the middle of that period, which is very quiet time for our team. So actually it doesn't really impact kind of projects at all. And we do it at the same time every year, so we can plan for it. It's not something that we just kind of on a whim decide, hey, let's do a hackathon next week. So by doing it and doing it at the same time every year, and it's really predictable, I think that really helps minimize the impact on the business. And obviously they know that if something went horribly wrong and we needed someone to jump on it, that there are people there who can do that. So yeah, that's it. And one thing I did want to talk about around this as well is something that kind of wasn't really something I intended, but it's grown organically out of this process, is the internal PR aspect of it, which I think is something I was talking to you about last time. So I think some people might be able to relate to this. So often tech teams, IT teams are, the wider organization only comes and talks to you when things go badly. If things work well and projects get delivered on time and all the stakeholders are getting the right report and keep staying informed, they don't really have any reason to talk to you. They only come and talk to you when things aren't going well and they're not getting the information they need. And so it can kind of create a bit of a negative vibe. And actually one of the things that we've done is we started to kind of invite stakeholders from across the business to come and watch the hackathon presentations, which the team all present at the end of the week, what they worked on. We produce a nice PDF document as well, which we circulate to the whole business. And that's been really, really good for internal PR, and it kind of gets people excited and kind of they can see the potential of actually this team can do some really cool stuff. And those people who do come down and kind of see the presentations almost go off and become ambassadors for tech within the business, and they tell people about what they saw. So that internal PR piece has been like a really, really good side effect of doing this, which worked out better than I could have imagined.
So instead of only getting the negative feedback in case a new deployment failed or a campaign failed because of a technical problem, now they see how creative these teams are. And I never thought about what you said earlier, where you said typically the tech team, they get ideas kind of pushed on them and they implement it, obviously based on that technical knowledge, but there's only certain room for creativity. But in this case, you give them the full freedom of creativity.
Yeah, and it's only for a week, but it's still like a really nice thing to do.
Yeah. Hey, one question just comes in from Mike. Do you have a winner for your hackathon? And if so, how is the winner or winning team determined?
So we get a panel of guest judges. So we have 3 judges. So last year we had someone from Google, someone from a company called Akuva, as one of our vendors. But the guy was formerly a CTO of a big e-commerce platform. And then we had 1 internal judge from somewhere else within the company. So our head of customer services came and was a guest judge. So we have 3 judges, and we have judging criteria as well. So we will, at the beginning of the week, we will set the criteria on which they're going to be judged, and it will be kind of points out of 10 for creativity, points out of 10 for execution, and points out of 10 for the potential business impacts of the idea. That's typically 3 things that we judge on, and then we have those 3 guest judges who will basically score on those 3 things. And then as a prize, what we usually do is we try and give the winning team something they can all go and do together. So it's we got them a meal at a very fancy restaurant, was the last prize, but it's kind of something the team can all go out and enjoy together. So yeah, that tends to be how we do it.
Now my question is, how do you get somebody from Google become a judge?
When you spend money with them, we use Google Cloud, so we spend a lot of money with it. It tends to open doors.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Cool. All right, so I think great answers to the first set of questions. Now let's go to the next one. There's more stuff. What happens before a hackathon? I think you already covered a little bit of it, but how do you plan it? Who gets invited? Who gets involved? What I'm additionally interested in, as you said it earlier, it's great for cross-team collaboration. So does this mean teams? How do teams get built? Is there somebody with an idea and they have to pitch this idea to the whole team and then they form a team, or how does this work?
So how it works is, so we obviously everyone knows kind of probably a month or 2 in advance when this is going to happen. So everyone kind of, they can think about stuff, they can kind of, you know, mentally prepare themselves for it, I guess. And then what we usually do is the Friday before, we will announce the teams, and we choose the teams. So I will sit down with a couple of my kind of heads of department, and we will decide on what the teams are going to be. And we usually kind of put them together. Sometimes certain skill sets make sense to put together. So we wouldn't put an iOS developer and a React developer in the same team. We probably have 2 React developers on one team, 2 React developers, 2 iOS developers on another. So we try and kind of make it so the skill sets make sense so that they can actually build something meaningful. And no one's going to be kind of left out and not have something that's relevant to the team. So we choose the teams. Generally, we find around 5 people in a team works quite well. We did have slightly bigger teams one year, and the one bit of feedback we got was that they would prefer smaller teams. So around 5 people tends to work well. I think probably 4 to 5, probably fine. And the whole team get involved. So my heads of department and leads don't do it, but all of our engineers do it. Everyone does it, unless you're on holiday or something like that and you can't do it. But other than that, everyone does it. And so yeah, we announce the teams on the Friday evening. We have a presentation, and the teams can go for a beer and have a chat if they want to after work. And then the hackathon runs from Monday to Friday the following week. And the teams themselves will come up with their ideas. So they will know what they're going to be judged on. So that kind of helps inform what they might do. And then basically they will brainstorm and come up with their own ideas. So usually that Monday morning is everyone kind of frantically trying to come up with what they're going to build for the week.
Okay, so that's interesting. That means in your case, you put the teams together with, obviously, you said earlier, having new people work with each other, because that's one of the aspects, cross-team collaboration, but then also making sure that you have the right skills in a team then the teams itself, they come up with the idea over the weekend, so that on Monday they start hacking. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
very cool. I think coming to my next question, I think you already gave a couple of answers to this, but then from an execution perspective, you mentioned you have a full week, so Monday through Friday. What happens still during the week? Are there things like a daily check-in, a daily stand-up in the morning, a daily status update? You know, any particular agenda items throughout the week?
So we have a full team lunch every day. We order lunch in for everyone. We want people to be able to kind of like not have to worry about anything else other than the projects they're doing. So we tend to order lunch in every day for people. Sometimes breakfast as well, I think. So yeah, so we tend to order lunch in for everyone so they can all have lunch together. But the teams tend to be quite secretive about what they're working on. They tend
So it's a
not to
competition. In the end, it's a competition, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So they tend to be quite secretive. It is quite interesting as the week goes on. You do start to get a sense of what certain people are working on. So yeah, but yeah, they tend to be quite secretive. And then on the Friday, we have an afternoon of presentations. So probably around mid-afternoon on Friday, the team will have 15 minutes. Each team will have 15 minutes and 5-minute Q&A, so 20 minutes per team to present. And then the judges will often ask questions. And yeah, and then after that we announce the winner and we have a big party afterwards, which is always fun. But yeah, it's always a really good week. It's, as I say, the teams do kind of get very, very into it. We had one year we had people actually building stuff with kind of electrical circuits and wires and all sorts of stuff, and it's kind of, you're looking and you're like, what's going on here? This is crazy. It was actually very cool. But yeah, it's always a really, really good week. But yeah, the teams are pretty self-sufficient. We don't really manage them very much. We just let them get on with it.
Have you, because you've been doing this for 3 years, has the model changed? Have you tried something different in the beginning and then you adapted it based on your learnings?
The main thing that's changed is that team sizes have gotten smaller. That was a bit of feedback that we got. But no, nothing's really changed. One thing that we did learn actually is, so we have 2 meeting rooms in our office and we'll have maybe 6 hackathon teams. So those 2 meeting rooms are very, very popular. So we actually ended up starting to create a schedule for the meeting rooms. So each team would have a meeting room for an allocated period of time. So they weren't fighting over them. But yeah, no, not too much has changed. We tend to, I think, for me, the idea is for the teams to be self-sufficient and to be autonomous and to kind of go away and kind of come up with an idea and build it. So we don't really feel the need to kind of hold their hand too much or get involved in it.
Now, looking back in history, you've been doing this for 3 years. Do you have a rough estimate on how many of the projects that came out of the hackathons in the end had a business impact? That means that they have been then taken further and into production or wherever you took them?
That's the biggest challenge with these things, is actually you get a lot of ideas and the standard is always very, very high. Like, I'm always super impressed at how high the standard was. In fact, I think in the last hackathon, the guy from Google actually said that it was amazing to see how every team had thought about the end user. They thought about the customer, which often hackathons are just tech people doing cool tech things. So the standard is always very, very high. The hardest thing is actually finding the time, because most things you build in a hackathon, it'll be a POC, it'll be an MVP, it won't be a finished product. We have had some that have been closer to a finished product than others, but generally speaking, it's going to be a proof of concept or something like that. So finding the time to actually build this stuff is quite hard. There's a lot of good things that have come out of it that we want to do. Some things we've kind of taken and maybe done in a different way. So for example, one year we had a team did a project with beacons. So they kind of almost simulated our physical stores and put these beacons in, and when you kind of walk in, something will pop up on your phone. And so they actually did some really clever stuff with data as well. So it kind of knew if you'd recently requested to return something to the store, when you walk into the store, it would direct you to where to return the item to. So we actually are doing a project right now with those beacons. The same beacon technology, we're just doing something a little bit different with it. So that's quite a good one that something came out of. We did a project a while back with machine learning and kind of looking at images and kind of trying to kind of decide, is this a striped t-shirt or a print t-shirt or a shirt, or even, you know, even down to getting the brand of sneakers that it is. So and that is in development. Has been for quite some time. It's one of those things that we sort of just pick up every now and then and do a bit of work on it. So there are a couple of things that have kind of made it through, and there are a lot more things that we'd really like to do. Oh, there's one more good one actually. There was a team last year that did a project around sustainability and kind of eco-friendly products. Obviously, very hot topic at the moment. So that very quickly was kind of agreed. And actually, this is a really good example of that. That kind of stakeholders coming and watching it and becoming ambassadors for tech, because one of the guys was actually in a WhatsApp conversation with our two founders as the presentation was happening, saying, this is fantastic, we should totally do this. So yeah, that's something else that we kind of decided to move into production.
Very cool. Well, let's have a look at some of the results from the recent hackathon that you did on Dynatrace focused, and I will probably let you speak to it, right? I think the first one, mobile monitoring. Yeah. What are we looking at here?
So this was our Android app, mobile monitoring before hackathon. Yeah. Not so great.
It's no, really empty. That means not well instrumented, I guess, and not a whole lot of data.
And this is after. Yeah, so it's really interesting. So we have so actually I'll just give a little bit of context around the Dynatrace Hackathon, which I think will kind of help frame some of this. So we didn't actually intend for the Dynatrace Hackathon to be a hackathon. I had blocked out a week, and I really wanted our teams to spend a week getting really deep into Dynatrace and kind of really kind of understanding the potential of the platform and kind of improve visibility of how their apps are performing in production. Because I kind of feel like there are some people on the team who really do get it and really understand it, but for most people, it's somewhere you go when there's a problem you want to troubleshoot. And that's not what I want. I want our teams to be much more focused on how their apps are running in production. So we basically did them kind of the front end team, back end team, iOS team, and Android team went off and kind of had a week to work on this stuff. And I was a little bit worried about the mobile app teams, because I know the mobile app features in Dynatrace are kind of a bit behind the rest of. I mean, you guys have done a fantastic job in the last year or two in kind of catching them up and in a much better place now. But I was a little bit worried about what they do, but actually they did a really, really good job. I don't think we've got any slides from iOS in here, but they did a really, really good job. So yeah, this was kind of the team just getting Dynatrace to a point where it's actually working and it's tracking the right things, and they've got some cool dashboards so they can see what's going on. And it's quite a big contrast to before and after. So this is a really good kind of example of that kind of business value of it. I mean, this is something that we saw before. They had nothing, pretty much. Yeah. And now they've got this fantastic dashboard that's got some really useful data on it. So you know, you can't really argue with the business value of that. Like it's really fantastic. So yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah, and I think I like what you said at the beginning. You said most often Dynatrace is seen as a platform for troubleshooting in case there are problems in production. But basically, really what it is a platform that has a lot of data, especially focused around your end users. And if you harness the data, then you can make better decisions on what works, what doesn't work, right? I see here things like crash counts, which particular version of the app is crashing, how often. I think that's very, very important. And why is it crashing? Or things like feature adoption. Right? These are all things that this is data that is extremely valuable, but not only for troubleshooting, but really for figuring out, is this new change that we just deployed actually working? Is it accepted by users? Does it have a positive or negative impact? And I think that's great.
That's awesome. You know, our iOS team did a very similar dashboard to this, but one thing they did that I thought was really, really nice was they set up a lot of conversion funnels. So your new conversion funnel tile, which I absolutely love, by the way. So they use that to kind of measure lots of different features within the app. and how many people are using them. And we actually found that some of the features that we thought that people would be using all the time, they weren't really using at all. So maybe actually we don't need that, or we can think about it in a different way. So yeah, it's really good to get those insights. I think as well, one of the things I'm really trying to do is break this. I think sometimes when you're in an engineering team, you have this cycle of, you build something, it gets tested in a development environment, it gets pushed up to production, then you go on to build the next thing and actually almost forget about the stuff that you've done. And what I really want to do is kind of bring that back into the picture and have people looking at it all the time. So yeah, stuff like this is really good.
And apologize for not putting in the funnel. I'll try to find a couple of cool things, but I forgot about the funnel. And I remember you saying that you really liked the project, what the iOS team did. So
yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah, cool. All right, another project, not just no animation here. It's just a couple of screenshots, was around Kubernetes monitoring.
Yes. So, I mean, there's not a ton to say on this. They got the Kubernetes monitoring working. This has been a little bugbear of mine for years. Well, not years, about maybe a year. We use Kubernetes, as I'm sure many of you do. And you guys have obviously put a lot of work into your Kubernetes monitoring. It is really good to see. I remember I was in Vegas at Perform, and I don't know if the stuff I saw has been released yet, but it was super cool. So yeah, I've been really keen to get this up and running, and one of the teams did it in a week, which is fantastic. So yeah, this was really good to see that they just got our Kubernetes monitoring up. So I think this is monitoring our microservices, not our React front ends. But yeah, they did it in that week. And they did a bunch of other stuff as well. This was just one of the things that they presented. But yeah, it's kind of like, again, it's one of those things, how can you argue that there's no value in this? It's giving us a level of insight that we didn't have before.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I received a presentation from you, and then I know this was a whole section about how to enable full stack monitoring with Dynatrace, how to roll it out automatically, and then how you can use the tagging correctly, the naming rules, and they did a lot of great things. But I wanted to focus on this one because I know, just as you, many others are moving towards Kubernetes as the new future platform. And that's why it's great that you take the hackathon to really not only let them play with the technology of Kubernetes, deploying things into Kubernetes, but also getting insights into it with Dynatrace. And what you see here are some of the new things that we have. It's full monitoring of your workloads. We have a new concept that is called cloud applications. So we automatically monitor your pods, your services. We see all of your events. That is a great insight, obviously, and it shows you what's really going on in the system. That people like Kelsey Hightower, he always makes it very easy, right? If you watch Kelsey, the advocate from Kubernetes from Google, but we also know that Kubernetes is a complex beast, and we try to solve that complexity issue. Exactly.
And for someone like me in my role, like, it's just so nice to have all the information in one place.
Yeah.
So I can go in Dynatrace, I can see how my Kubernetes clusters are performing. I can get my real user data in there, and there's so much stuff in there, and it's all in one place. And it just makes my life so much easier, not having to go to 3 or 4 different tools to get the information that I need. So this is a really good one.
Yeah. Cool. And then I got one more here, and I think I need a little bit of your explanation on what this is all about.
This is a really good one. Love these tweets. So yeah, so a big part of our business is kind of limited edition sneakers or trainers, or depending where in the world you're from. And these are very limited supply. And if you can get a pair, you can resell them within days for 2, 3, 4, 5 times the price. So it's a very lucrative, and there's this huge kind of resale market behind it of people who basically just try and get these things to resell them. Which obviously attracts a lot of bots. And some quite sophisticated bots, actually. They go to extraordinary lengths to make themselves look human. I actually went to DEF CON last year in Vegas, and there was a talk, The Rise of the Sneaker Bots, and it was by someone who built sneaker bots. And I felt like I was behind enemy lines because I spend all of my life trying to stop these things, and this person spends all their life trying to get past me. So this was a really interesting idea. I really quite like this one actually. So it's kind of how can we leverage our Dynatrace data to try and identify if a session is a bot or a real person. And the reason I like this is because sometimes if I'm not sure if an IP address is a bot, I will look in Dynatrace and look at the session data behind it.
Yeah.
Even if it goes to extraordinary lengths to disguise itself as human, usually just by looking at the session, you can tell if it's a person or not. You can tell by looking at the interval between clicks, and it just kind of, it's just instinctive. When you look at a lot of sessions, you can tell a human one from a bot quite easily. So this team sort of explored how can they leverage Dynatrace data to kind of help us better identify is a session a real person or not. And I think this is really interesting. This has really interesting applications. I'm not sure I'd depend on it as the only thing to kind of identify if something's a bot, but certainly I think that this data could definitely help enrich some of the other tools that we use to kind of help us in this analysis.
Yeah, it's really cool. So the screenshots that we have here, right? It's obviously the basis of all of this is the Dynatrace RAM data, the user session, all the clicks, we call them user actions. And then you guys wrote an app basically that queries that data through USQL, our user session query language, and then you go off and figure out with your own learnings on whether this could be a bot or not. I mean, Dynatrace itself, we detect bots based on, let's say, standard algorithms, right? But this is a great way, and I think this could be a great extension to Dynatrace in general, because you've been in Vegas, right? So you've heard Bernd Graffeneder, our CTO, talk about the upcoming marketplace and the application framework. So this could be a great extension to the core Dynatrace bot detection algorithm. Yeah. Very cool. And there's actually just the comment coming in. This
I'm
could.
just looking at this now, and I'm like, is that Comic Sans? Is that font Comic Sans? I think it is.
I think it could be. We just got a comment in here, a little sarcastic, but I have to read it out. This could work for concert tickets too. Wait, no more concerts, unfortunately. But yeah, but they will be back eventually. So right, I mean,
well, that's actually a really interesting comment, because that is the closest parallel with the industry that we're in. Is concert tickets. You put them online, they sell out straight away, and most of the people who bought them are bots. So yeah, and often when we talk about this and we're looking to kind of talk to other people who have this problem, we will talk to people like Ticketmaster and people like that.
Cool. But great to know that, again, part of like one of the projects of your hackathon was harnessing the data of Dynatrace and perform some analytics on top of it to really solve a business problem that you have in your particular industry. That's really cool. I'll kind of concluding, and also as a reminder again, for those folks that are live, feel free to put questions into the question feature, so that if you have any pressing questions, we can get them answered before we conclude today. But some follow-ups after the hackathon. I know we talked about some of those already, but still, kind of to conclude, how do you measure the success of a hackathon? We know what some projects obviously have made it to the next phase. Many don't, maybe, but still, anything else that you can share on what happens after the hackathon?
For me, if we get some projects that we kind of end up using, that's a bonus. Like for me, the team having a good time and enjoying it and getting something kind of fulfilling out of the process, that to me is the most important thing. And really, the only way we can kind of gauge that is the feedback that the team gives us, and then they seem to really enjoy it. I mean, you have one or two people who don't feel like that hackathons are for them, but for the most part, I'd say 99% of people really, really enjoy doing it. So for me, that's kind of that is a measure of success. Also, that internal PR piece that I talked about as well is like a really great measure of success. But we don't kind of formally measure it with any metrics or anything like that. As I say, we always produce that wrap document at the end, which we share across the business and with the board and also our VC as well. And so that's kind of really a good measure of a success, is kind of we always get amazing feedback on that document. And And if I get some emails from executives or other executives, or as I say, our VC, if they come back to me and say, hey, great work, looks awesome, it's worthwhile. But yeah, I think one of the things I have been quite conscious of over the years is that I feel like not enough of the projects make it into production, or make it in production quickly. And I think that's just part of having a very ambitious roadmap. I'm sure you guys are the same. Having a very ambitious roadmap and not enough people to deliver it. But we do try and work these things in when we can, but it is quite challenging.
Just a question that came in, because you said earlier that everyone participates. What do you do with people that for whatever reason don't want to participate? There might be people that, I don't know, as you said, it's not for them. Has this ever happened, and how do you deal with this?
I've never had it happen,
okay.
no.
Okay.
To be honest, we've never really given people an option. It's just, this is what you're doing for this week. It'd be kind of like going into work for a week and saying you don't want to do your job this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's something that we do. And I've never had anyone, even the people who say it's not for them, they still do it. Yeah, never been a problem.
To solve the problem of there's not enough time afterwards to kind of push these things further fast enough, we did one project or one kind of hackathon a while ago, and I remember what we did at the end, we had all sorts of ideas and projects, and then everyone could give points to what they actually thought they liked the best, and the more points you received in the end, they converted into days that you could then take out of your next month. So, right, if everybody thought that the mobile project was the best and they got 10 points from all the other participants, that converts into so many hours or days that they were then freed up from their regular work the next month.
That's a really good idea. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just sharing. It's not stealing. It's all good. Yeah. Very cool. And another question, I think a confirmation. So that means you're running a hackathon once a year or more often?
So once a year is kind of the scheduled one, which is in December. The Dynatrace one that we did it 2 months ago, I think. And as I say, that kind of didn't start out as a hackathon. It just started out as, I'm going to take a week to get the team really deep into Dynatrace and really kind of get them to have some hands-on experience. I know you did a presentation for my team, which went really well. We've done training. I did a presentation. I did the Dynatrace for Dummies presentation for them. But actually having that hands-on experience and actually doing stuff with the platform, there's no substitute for that. So it didn't really start out as a hackathon, but we felt like the team would probably get the most out of it by running it like a hackathon. So technically we will do 2 this year. And actually it went so well, I think potentially there might be other areas where we can apply this and kind of do these really kind of narrow focus hackathons with just a week of people's time, have some real kind of tangible objectives that you want to get out of it. Because this is actually different to most of the other hackathons we've run, in the sense that a lot of this stuff here was production ready, or pretty close to production ready. So it's not like there's a lot of work that needs to be done to actually leverage this stuff. So I'm thinking more about the mobile teams and some of the other stuff that wasn't necessarily included in here. But I think that going forward, this was a real success story, and I think that it's a good model if there are other areas that we kind of want to get the team really kind of deep into and get a lot of experience with, that this kind of thing can work.
Cool. Another question just comes in. So you mentioned you did the last one 2 months ago. That was during the lockdown. Does this mean you did the hackathon remotely?
Yes. Okay. Which was a concern, but I think it went okay. It was. We did do it during the lockdown. It was. I mean, basically, we did the same format, so it's kind of a week long. We did the presentations via a webinar, which we recorded and shared with you guys. We did it during lockdown. Not really sure how the teams found that compared to being in the office. Haven't really spoken about it because we're in lockdown and it's not easy just to go and have a chat with someone. Yeah, I mean, it worked out quite well. I think, to be honest, it was probably quite nice to break up kind of the monotony of just constantly working on tasks and having your daily stand-ups and having your regular weekly meetings, to actually kind of break it up and do something a little bit different. So I think they probably enjoyed it. But yeah, we did do it during lockdown.
Yeah, cool. All right, then I want to conclude with one more slide.
Oh, nice.
Some hackathon ideas, and I want to highlight the gentleman on the left. I remember him. He approached me I think it was like 2 years ago at a conference, and he said, "Hey, you are the UFO dude." I said, "Yes, that's me. Let me show you something." So they basically did as a hackathon project, printed the Dynatrace UFO, because we have all the 3D printing instructions and the software up on GitHub. And then they, as part of the hackathon, not only did they build it, assemble it, but also integrate it with their CI/CD pipeline. So every time a build kicked off, a deployment happened, a problem happened, it was fully integrated into the pipeline. That was a pretty cool hackathon project.
That's really cool. You know, we've got one of those UFOs in our office.
Yeah.
Every now and then it turns a color that I'm like, what is that? What color? What does that mean? But yeah, they're cool. They're really cool.
Yeah. And then as another idea from my side is, we are currently driving Captain as I call it now the autonomous cloud control plane, which means it automates a lot of tasks around CI/CD and also around automated operations on top of the APIs of other tools such as Dynatrace. And I can just encourage anyone, because I had another customer actually also from the UK. They told me that they recently did a mini hackathon, and one of their projects was to get Captain up and running and get microservices deployed in a Kubernetes environment and see how this new way of event-driven continuous delivery and operations works. So yeah, maybe people that are listening in. Now, do you have any, now looking back, you said, you wanted to take this as an opportunity to get more deeper insights into Dynatrace, that everybody's aware of what Dynatrace can do. Do you have any more ideas on top of your mind, what you would like to do in another hackathon?
I was just going to say we want to do some stuff with Captain, so that could well be the next one. I think that's a really good idea. But yeah, I think that this kind of served as a really good kind of platform almost for people to kind of understand what's possible with Dynatrace. And I definitely think it'd be nice to start getting it more integrated in our pipelines. But yeah, we've looked at Captain before, and I think that we will do something with it in the very near future. So watch this space. That could be the next one.
Yeah, perfect. Glad to hear. Hey, Paul, I think that's it from my end. We're almost at the top of the hour. So thank you so much for sharing your stories, your experiences with hackathons with us. Thanks for the audience to bring in all these questions. If more questions come up, I'm sure there's a way for those folks to follow up with us. I know you said you're not really on social media, but I'm pretty sure if somebody wants to get in touch with you, there's some way.
I'm on LinkedIn. That's the only one I do.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, thank you. It's been really good to talk to you about this. Apologies for the internet problems earlier on, but we got there. We got there in the end.
Yeah, that's okay. It's things like this happen, and a couple of jokes came out of it, right? That's all good. Okay, thank you so much. The recording of this will be up on Dynatrace University as well as on the YouTube channel soon. So in case you want to rewatch it, in case you want to forward this to some of your colleagues or friends, then please do so. In case you run out of Netflix shows, it's always a great thing to have a couple of performance clinics in your backlog. So that's the way it works. Okay, Paul, thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.